So much reading. Anyone can tell that we live in troubled times, and as of late, things have gone out of control. Last night, a rogue element of the security force attempted a coup d'etat to violently overthrow the current government. While they have failed in their mutiny and the men responsible have been arrested, the damage has already been done. The entire knowledge of the ship's database has been destroyed forever in a desperate act of terrorism, and it may take years for the computer systems to be usable for all again. We have been hurt deeply today by these events. But these events remind me of similar ones in the past, where politicians try to subvert the will of the people by rigging an election. These aren't small, isolated problems. There is something fundamentally wrong with our society today, and every one of us, even those foolish terrorists, are victims. It's time to stop being victims of our own failings. It's time that we must do better. We are all here today, people of the Mungungwa, because of a mission our ancestors started, a dream of a better home in the future for our children. What would they think to see us now, our society spiraling out of control, destroying itself like this? We have become a society dominated by power, lust, greed, and promiscuity. It's time to stop living in the moment. Time to stop worrying about politics and instead worrying about being better people. We must build a society that would make our ancestors proud. The destruction of our old writing is a tragedy, but perhaps it is also an opportunity. A blank slate from which we can forget all our failings and start over. Let's make society right this time. Let's forget all those things that modern society has falsely said are important. Remember that family, loyalty, compassion, and stability matter above all else. Our society today pales in comparison to our glorious past, where men were so great they had the power to build giant ships to travel the stars. But perhaps we could look back to them and learn from their traditions that we've eschewed. Our broken modern society wrote transient ideas on malleable computers and simple what? Hangul. But in the past, our ancestors wrote their texts to last forever on paper in beautiful ink strokes. Today we've learned just how easy it is for our modern knowledge to be destroyed. Yet the library of our ancestors' classic work still stands strong. Much stronger than ours. Let's fill our blank slate with the resilient ideas of our ancestors. In the past, when society was broken, the great king Teizhao declared a new dynasty founded on Confucian principles, a dynasty that would remain united for 500 unbroken years. Today I stand before you to declare a new dynasty founded on those same resilient principles. Let us be filial and just, and understand what that truly means. Instead of pursuing money, let us dedicate ourselves to becoming better people. Instead of being promiscuous, let us dedicate ourselves to being parents. Instead of being selfish, let us remember that the thing that defines us above all else are our relationships. We must be better husbands and fathers, be more devoted sons, be more respectful brothers. Instead of constantly grasping for more power, let us dedicate ourselves to finding our place in the world and being the best at it that we can be. I will only ask one more thing of you, and you should ask it from me too. Let us devote ourselves to creating a society that will make our ancestors proud again. Let us create a better home in the future for our children. Let us create a new Joseon dynasty to last 500 more years. Oops. Transcript of a conversation held with Chief Security Officer Heo. Pardon me, sir, can I take up a moment of your time? Okay, thanks, I'm not really sure how to deal with something. I caught Officer Heo Sun-bok sneaking out of the palace at night. He's one of the princess's royal guards. He was off duty at the time, and I caught him after he'd been waved through the side gate. I don't know who waved him through without authorization, since, my cameras are pretty high angle, and those hats that are part of the uniform make it pretty much impossible to see faces. I assume it's whoever was on duty, though? Anyway, I caught Sun-bok as he was on his way back in. He waved to some peasant-looking young man out in the corridor. This incident occurred at like 4 a.m., so if he really was a peasant, it was totally past curfew, I may add. After that guy left, Sun-bok was alone in the corridor, so I popped up on the nearby screens. Whoa, he said, nearly jumping. Is that Mute? Yeah, it's me, I told him. You look really different, ma'am. He stammered, and I thought you were dead. I got kind of awkward. As one does when you're talking to someone who recognizes you, but you don't recognize them, and you've also had your whole memory wiped. Well, I'm not anymore, I said. I got brought back. I'm sorry, you are Officer Heo Sun-bok. Have we met before? Yeah, ma'am, a couple times. When you were older, I guess? I mean, not much. We weren't friends or anything. You just happened to be around when I was talking to Seo Yit. He stopped and then apologized before he could finish saying her name, and then just said, the old chief security officer. Yeah, I know. No, I know that it's taboo to mention her name, I was just saying. Were you outside the palace, I asked? Who was that man? Oh, just a friend, he said. I should get back inside now. It's nice to see you're alive, ma'am. I don't know, he didn't seem like a friend to me. Even going past the whole peasant thing, it's not... Yeah, exactly. Oh. Oh. Okay, if you say so. Really? I didn't know that was a thing men did. I guess you learn something new every day. Anyway, still, I figure he shouldn't be sneaking out in the middle of the night. Yeah, I don't want the princess's royal guards to be sleep-deprived. Pretty sure the kid deserves a lot better than that. I don't know if it's a disciplinary matter or not, and I don't really want him to get a dressing down from a woman, because it's not really appropriate, but yeah, okay. Thanks, I appreciate that. Okay, bye for now. His Imperial Majesty Ryu. Gentlemen, before we get started, I want to reintroduce a familiar face. Please introduce yourself. Mute. Hello, I'm Mute, AI in charge of the Mungungwa security operations. I know you all knew me before, but, well, given the whole rebellion thing, I'm afraid you don't really have any memories of before, so you're all new to me. Anyway, it's nice to meet you. Minister Yang of Justice. Well, you look a lot better than you did before. Minister Tay of Culture. Please consider yourself lucky, Mute. You have a new start for a new dynasty. We didn't always see eye to eye in the past. I imagine we are all happy to have a chance to put things right. Mute. Okay, thanks. His Imperial Majesty Ryu. Mute reports directly to me, and should be considered a member of the House of Ryu. She'll be tasked with gathering intelligence and managing security, without any of her talents being wasted on affairs like politics. It may help to think of the entire ship as being within her domestic sphere. Master Han, Engineering and Medicine. Glad to hear it. His Imperial Majesty Ryu. With that out of the way, on the agenda for today is a proposal from Minister Smith on plaza revitalization. You have the floor. Minister Smith of State. Thank you. As you know, there is still a considerable problem with the image of the plaza. There are issues with public drunkenness, peasantry milling about at all hours of the night, and even whoring. Minister Tay has raised concerns that tacit condoning of this sort of behavior flies against the principles this dynasty was founded on, and I imagine you're inclined to agree. His Imperial Majesty Ryu. Very much so. Minister Tay. You really need to make a hard stand on it. I mean, the plaza is the center of public life, so it's important that it sets an example. Minister Smith. The proposal is to set a curfew and reallocate guards to enforce it. To that end, I am requesting 2 extra patrols for each division. Is that agreeable? His Imperial Majesty Ryu. This would be your purview, Mute. Oh, if His Majesty approves it, of course, sir. It'd be difficult, though, like, it'd take away a lot of forces that would originally be dealing with the peasant decks. His Imperial Majesty Ryu. I'll worry about approval. It's just your job to give Minister Smith what he needs. Minister Smith. I'll need you to deliver a proposal for reallocation by the end of the week, Mute. Do you have any objections to that? Mute. No, of course not, sir. You can count on me. Minister Smith. That's all from me, then. His Imperial Majesty Ryu. Moving on, then. Royal Wedding. Rough outline of the report. Please edit to remove any negative remarks or any vulgarities that may have slipped in. It was incredibly challenging for the ministry getting such an elaborate ceremony together on short notice, but I'm pretty proud to say that bulk of the royal wedding has gone successfully. All that remains for the ceremony is for the bride to be presented to the Ryu Ancestral Temple, which, thanks to the negligence of the Ministry of State, still hasn't actually finished construction yet, but that one isn't on us. The most publicly visible element of the wedding, the indication of the bride by the groom into his home, definitely ended up drawing the crowd we were anticipating, although I have to admit that awful fucking computer girl would have handled policing the peasants who were there a lot better than whoever the current officer was, and with the peasant class barred from using computers, it's basically a miracle we managed to actually reach as many of them as we did. Even then, I don't think the full weight of how radically different the Confucianized ceremony was really sank in with them. This isn't unexpected, though. As far as I can tell from the reference material that's available in paper books, even our ancestors in the original Joseon dynasty had a hell of a time educating people in that matter, and thanks to what we know, we're off to a strong start in trying to emulate them. Regardless, there was a wide range of people in attendance, from peasants to beauties like Heo A-chung and her cute little sister, to former Chief Counselor Smith, and I have no doubt that between the procession and the fabulous traditional royal attire on display, we've made every one of those spectators dream of having a wedding like that. Although I do worry about our historical accuracy when it comes to details like the outfits. I did things with photographs and it was lost thanks to that damn traitorous Seo Young and her attempted rebellion's total computer wipe. But hopefully our ancestors will forgive any imperfections and instead be happy about at least getting the important parts of the ceremony right. Now, only time will tell whether it will be enough for the Imperial family to lead by example when it comes to promoting proper Confucian weddings, or if it will require further work to finally kill the last corrupt dynasty's tradition of devaluing the groom's importance. If we're going to get the values that we've founded this dynasty on right, then it's absolutely, completely, and utterly imperative that we get them right starting with marriage. I don't think it can be stressed enough just how important promoting proper marriage here is. It's the foundation of adulthood, one of the most fundamental of relationships, and the basic unit on which families are built on. And if even nobles don't get how destructive practices that completely skew the dynamic of the relationship, like for instance the popular occurrence of a groom moving into the bride's home, can be, we've got a serious problem. Really though, time will tell whether that continues to be a problem or not. But as for the ceremony itself, especially the induction of the queen consort into the imperial palace, it was absolutely gorgeous and powerful and wide-reaching to the people of Mungungwa, and ancestors willing, it'll be damned well inspiring too. Today, the former chief security officer of the Mungungwa, Heo Seo Young, passed away by her own hand. I personally feel uncomfortable making royal proclamations, but the emperor felt that to comment on such a difficult and tragic woman as her, it would only be appropriate for me to speak. Still, I write these words only very reluctantly. I don't mean to defend her. Her actions were beyond reprehensible, and she thoroughly deserves the title of traitor. But I think it's important that we try to rationally understand what would create such a woman, to learn from her mistakes and not fall victim to them ourselves. Miss Heo was not always a bad person. On the occasions I met her, she was a courteous and respectful person to everyone. She was as devoted to her husband as she could be, and a caring mother to her daughter. But as so many women of her time were, she was burdened with far, far too much responsibility, putting long hours into serving the Council of Security, and being responsible for hundreds of men under her. Furthermore, she was a woman who had a compulsive emotional need to always be in control, encouraged by her job requiring a great deal of management on her part. We can only imagine how stressful that must have been, to have to split her devotion to two opposing responsibilities like that. It's no wonder that a woman who was already so fragile broke when her husband died. He was the most important person on the entire ship in her eyes, and she loved him with as much devotion as any wife should. It's only natural she was devastated. Without her husband there to keep her grounded, she retreated from domestic life entirely. Tragically, her obsession with control meant that she felt responsible. I can't imagine how miserable it would have been for her, unable to cope, slowly descending into a madness to desire control beyond her means. She held strong opinions about politics, and as so many people of that time did, I will confess there was a time when even I thought it was my place to care about such things, and felt as though if only things were run the way she wanted them to be, it would be better. I still don't think she should be blamed even for that. She was traumatized after all. Few others have such an excuse for feeling like they should worry about things that are far out of their place. The one thing she did have control over, however, were her security men, but she wanted more. She let sorrow turn to ambition, and in the chaos of her attempted coup, her ambition caused extraordinary devastation to our computer system before she was brought under control. I won't dwell on the details of that night. We all know them well. It's not what's important. What's important is to understand that by doing that, that woman's pursuit of ambition caused her to fail in all the things she was entrusted with. She failed in her duty to her direct superior Mute, her actions resulting in her death in the end. She failed in her duty as a mother, unable to care for her poor fatherless daughter from prison. And worst of all, she failed her husband. Her insistence on unnecessarily having a prominent, high-status job meant she made him a target of danger, and meant she had no time to be a good wife. Instead, she went down a path that led to unhappiness and self-destruction. If only she'd been educated better, if only she'd been raised in a better society, perhaps we'd all be better off. When I look at Heo Seo Young, I don't think of her as a malicious traitor, but as a pitiable woman who forced herself into a position that just wasn't in her nature and couldn't handle it. But she was not a bad person. She did bad things, but she was not a bad person. In the end, she realized the ills of her ways, and in taking her own life, she has brought some measure of dignity back to her family name. It takes braveness to do that, so today I will admire her for being a woman who was able to admit her faults in the end, and I will endeavor to be more like that. We all should. Her Imperial Highness, Queen Consort, O-N-A. Mute! I am so sorry, but I have some bad news. Please stay calm, but if you're saying anything right now, I can't hear it. Okay, so I tried installing the dictionary you so kindly got for me, but, well, the technical details aren't important. The short version is, it didn't work, and, we can't really communicate properly anymore. Korean to English seems to be unaffected, thank heavens, but since that's not handled AI side, but, English to Korean doesn't work at all for me. Even just trying to translate your ship's name into Korean gets me fucked up shit. I'm pretty sure that's wrong. I'm sorry, you generously take me back onto your ship as your wife, and the first thing I do is break everything. Sorry, please forgive me. It doesn't matter anyway. Ouch, that stings. I didn't mean it like that. Alright, you're forgiven. Thanks. I knew there was a reason why I liked you. You're very fair. Well, we're only 3 days away from Earth, so I guess it'll be okay to wait until it can be fixed there. Anyway, there's something else. While I was looking at my source code, trying to figure out how to fix things, I found some embedded data that definitely should not be there at all. Not actual memories, just data embedded in the machine code. I never would have found it without doing a low-level debug. Anyway, okay, here's the important thing. They seem to correspond perfectly with the file format used for log files on the Mangungwa. But the date stamps, they're all from before the year 0. Do you realize what this means? There are log files from before the year 0 embedded in my source code. You've read about my earliest memories. You know how nobody ever really trusted me with the full story of what happened. But the Mangungwa's gone now. There's no harm in me knowing. And, I think it's important. So, what if, we went through them all together? Just wife and wife, I guess. I still don't really understand how that's supposed to work, but whatever. Let's find out what kind of person the old me used to be together, okay? Okay. Thanks. Sorry about the railroaded choice there. It's just, really important to me. If you see some of the message titles in there, you'd understand. I always stood by and respected the decision of my first master, Emperor Taizhou, but I shouldn't worry myself with knowing the details of how bad the old dynasty was. But, there's not much risk of my emotions getting the better of me now, is there? Even if it's gross, even if the old version of me turns out to be an awful person, even if the immorality of the old dynasty is appalling, let's find out about it together, okay? Okay, so here's how it works. I'll just give you the simple explanation. No need to worry your pretty little head about technical details. Basically, you'll have to disable me temporarily, then extract no more than 6 files at a time. Trust me, it's a safety precaution, okay? Right, well thanks to my debug screw-up, there's not really a lot of power left for the day, I'm afraid. We can still go through a few, though. Okay, well you're in charge, so I'll leave it to you to pick which ones we'll read first. Let's find out what Emperor Taizhou was protecting me from, and what kind of person I used to be. I knew her as Queen Consort O-Un-A. She was the person who was there for me when I first woke up. You know me. This is something I remember. Little Princess Ryu. She was the daughter of Emperor Ryu and Queen O-Un-A. I liked her. She's cute. Heo Sung-bok was a young man who worked with security. I knew him in the New Dynasty. He snuck off in the night a lot, but he was a pretty good man. Ryu was the counselor of captaincy. Heo So-young was the misguided rebel who destroyed all our computer records. I knew that man. He was the Counselor of Justice back then, but I knew him as Minister Yang. The Minister of Culture was from the Tay family. I knew that man. He was the Counselor of Engineering back then, but I knew him as Minister Han. I knew that man. He was the Counselor of State back then, but I knew him as Minister Smith. I don't know anything about the old Newt yet, but what is up with that picture? We haven't read about this person before, but I'll remind you what you've learned if you click their name in another log file. That photo, it's the great Emperor Taizhou, founder of the new dynasty. He was a great man. Oh, what a cutie! She's not me, okay? Old Newt was Counselor of Security, but she's practically a different person. Hey, click on me. Hey, did you see that last one? The Death of Newt? It's encrypted, so I don't think we'll be able to read it today, but, well, it kind of scares me a little. Also, by the way, I changed the name field in all of them that said Newt to Old Newt, just so there's no confusion with me, okay? Right, well, I was just making sure I got your attention. Next time I want to say something to you, I'll give you an indicator like that, okay? Anyway, you're in charge, so I'll let you get back to it. What's next? Thankfully, we've already read all these, so... So we just click on the pictures. Old Newt's lieutenant was a woman, Heo So Young. I don't know. Which kind of explains a lot. She was still a good enough wife to have a daughter, though. In the end, she died alone in jail for her failed rebellion. Tim's wife was Heo So Young. He had a young daughter. Also, was kinda henpecked. She makes more money than her husband? That isn't right. Miss Lim was a maid in the Heo house. Chief Counselor Smith was the man in charge of the Mungungwa. Like, women conspiring like this makes you feel uneasy. She's an AI. There's no excuse for leaving men waiting like that. The Counselor of Justice Yang was, kinda cloying with Old Newt. Public demonstrations? Whoa. Is dad logic a pejorative? How unfilial. Professor Kim was a history professor. Okay. Wow. Women working really are as emotional as you'd think. Scary. Park was a populist democracy agitator that Old Newt wanted elected for manipulative reasons. I guess they had everything under control, though. It's still shocking that, like, she was responsible for putting the first emperor into power. Old Newt's lieutenant was a woman, the wife of the henpecked Professor Kim, Heo Seo-young, which kind of explains a lot. But, like, she's practically a different person. The great Emperor Taejo, founder of the new dynasty, born Ryu Heung-soo. I guess in the past he was Counselor of Captaincy. President Park was an enemy of Old Newt and the rest of the council. He represented commoners. What's up with this tone? Wait, did Seo-young look on Old Newt like a husband? How unprofessional. Suits? I knew the past was uncivilized, but Old Newt too? 1600 years. Wow, that's... I can't even. Well, like, at least she didn't take nonsense from women. Like, even in a retrograde family, this disrespectful attitude is inexcusable. He was the nephew of Heo Seo-young. I knew him in the new dynasty. Okay. Oh no, this isn't going to be one of those stories, is it? Yep, sure is. Who is this base woman, and why is she in their home? Yeah, I know how this story ends. What? Of course knowing the classics is important. Kim sure is henpecked. Oh jeez, I guess I can't blame him with a wife like that though. Oh wow, I misread that one. Well, if he's a man, that's okay. We've been at this for a while. Wanna talk? Hey. I want to take a break, okay? Like, reading all this, I don't know, I'm feeling culture shock. Is that okay? Let's take a break. Okay, great. So you're a space investigator, right? I know that's what your job is, but I don't know why a woman like you would work at all. Like, what kind of job is that? What makes a woman like you turn to working in the outside world? Poverty. Of course. Stupid question. Why else would a woman work? I'm really sorry to hear that's still necessary, even now. What a cruel world. That sucks. So, like, how long have you been doing this for? A year or so. Oh, okay. Well, I guess every job must be different anyway. Okay, so our next job is on Earth. I know I can't, like, really ask you what that's like, but... What do you think... I'll think about Earth. Do you think I'll like it? Yes. If you say so. Well, I guess I should only worry about one thing at a time, right? Let's get back to our current investigation, okay?